Hi everybody. In this video, we're going to look at how to take your data range and convert it to an Excel table instead. And they both have their pros and cons. So we've been working with data ranges right now, the last few videos, again, which is just an organized way to enter your data in Excel that has this similar formatting, right? So you have your fields or your columns, your different categories there, and then you have your rows of data. And if you find it helpful, you can also convert this into a table. The one thing that a table cannot do that a data range can is adding in all those subtotals. Remember how we did the video where we added in the subtotals after each office location? The table can't do that. So there's some things that, of course, are better as a range, other things as a table. But the table is a really nice way to view the data and to organize it. And I'll show you what that looks like. So here is our Excel file in the data range format that we've been using. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and convert it to a table instead. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click the top cell of my data range. So I'm just going to click cell A4 here, again, including the label there. And I'm going to go to insert and I'm going to go to table. Now I do want to make sure and double check that whereas the data for your table has the entire data range in it. So notice how it does automatically note that it goes from A4 down to M534. So it is including the entire data range, which is important. And we're also going to click, in this case, my data has headers, because it does, right? It has titles at the top of each of those columns there. And we're going to go ahead and just click OK. And you can see that the formatting does change a little bit here. So I'm just going to click so we can see it a little bit better. And what happens is it adds this banding in the rows, which definitely I think makes it easier to read. And it also automatically allows you to filter as well here. So it adds those filter buttons in automatically too. But you can tweak a lot of your design here. So up top now you should see a feature for table design. And in that, you can do things like select the first column and the last column, and those just bold the first and last column. That's all they do. So you can see that those are bolded there, or you could unselect them. You could also change the banding. So if you don't want your rows to be banded, you could unselect that. You could band the columns instead. I actually like the banded rows here. It makes, for me, a little bit more visually appealing, a little easier to read. So I'm going to leave that there. Same thing with the filter button. You could turn that off and on. So if you don't want that filter button in your table, you don't have to have it. You can switch that around. You can also select the different styles here on the right. So they have some, pre-programmed in styles that you may like. So you have orange, red, gray, and etc. You can kind of scroll through and just check out some of those different styles. So lots to choose from here. Oh, I don't like that one. So you want to find one that you do like, and we'll stick with this orange one here. This one looks pretty good. So one that, again, is visually appealing there. The other thing that we can do too is we can rename the table. So I've been playing around. So this is called table 2, but when you create a table, it will call it table 1 first. And then if you create another one, table 2, table 3, and so on. So I can go ahead and just rename this table. Maybe I want to call it employees underscore table or something like that. So table names cannot include spaces, which is why we're using the underscore there. So if you get an error, you can, your book does have some more detail about how you can name your tables, but they don't allow spaces. So we're using the underscore there. And then I can just update that piece. So you can see my table name updated as well. So you can play around with some of the different table styles and features there. The other thing that you can add is you can add a total row. So it doesn't do subtotals in the middle, but you can add a total row at the very bottom, for instance, and you can do that by clicking right here that says total row. So I'm going to click that, and you can see that it does highlight this total row here. And it did fill in the last column for us. So this is the sum of those, let me move myself out of the way here, of those eval scores. But you can actually choose to add them to each column if you want to. So for instance, if I want to look at the base salaries there, and I click that total row, a little arrow will pop down and I can decide which calculation I want done. And again, these are your more, they give you your basic functions first. So maybe I do want the total there, so I could choose sum, and that would sum up the base salary. I could do the same thing for the bonuses. Maybe I would like to sum up the bonuses. Maybe I would like to sum up the commissions. Maybe for personal days, I want to do something different. Maybe I want to find the average number of personal days, right? So I can go in and kind of choose which formula makes the most sense there. The other thing is you can always go back to your home page and you can change the decimal places and the formatting as well. So those functions still work. Another really nice thing about the table design here is that when I scroll, I want you to notice that those headers stay up top. So in a normal Excel file, when we scroll, the top part here stays as the lettered columns, right? A, B, C, D, and so on. When we're using the table feature, our headers here actually become the top labels. So it just makes it easier where you don't have to freeze like your top row or anything. Just makes it, again, a little bit easier to kind of look through some of that data. So that's a little pro of the table as well. All right, you can go in and you can add records and things too. So for instance, if I want to go over here and maybe I need to delete a record, I can do like I normally have. So I can select that record. I can right click and delete, or I can use our other features over here. Go back to the home tab and you can use the delete feature here. It doesn't matter. So I can delete and you can also insert the row back in. So if I wanted to, enter some new data in there, I can delete and I can add. And it will keep the formatting, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about changing that formatting like we normally have to do when we're working with, when we're not in table format here. So that's a nice feature there. And then of course you can also add in columns and things as well. So let's just do a little bit of playing around with that. So maybe I'd like to add in a column. I'm gonna have it go right before column D. So I'm gonna click the insert button and I can change the title. So maybe I want this to be the employee's full name. For whatever reason, that would be helpful. And you can see it updates, with the same formatting with those filter features. Now, entering it is a little bit different with the table format. So you have to notice a couple key features here. So I'm still going to go ahead and I want to basically combine my last name and first name. I want it to be last name, comma, first name is what I would like it to see. So with tables, it's very similar. You're going to start with that equal sign, but it is a little bit different with writing formulas here, although they're pretty similar. So you start with the equal, and then you're going to do a left bracket and the at feature there. And then what you're going to notice is these are all our predetermined labels here. So they allow you to kind of select the whole column at once. So I'm going to have it do, what did we say? We said last name first, right? So I'm going to select last because that's my last name. I'm going to just double click that. And then because I want to do more than just one thing, I want to add to it. The notation that we're going to use here is we're going to press a space bar. We're going to use an ampersand. We're going to use quotes, a comma. I'm going to put the space, and now I want the first name to go in. So I'm going to do the kind of same thing again here. Yeah, I'm going to move myself out of the way. And then I'm going to go back in and do another bracket, another at, and let's see. hang on, there's something wrong here. So let's go back and fix this. So I have at last. Okay, that looks good. Oh, I know what I forgot. See, I forgot to close my bracket there. So I apologize. So pause for a second. I make mistakes too. I forgot to close my bracket. And I've done this mistake a couple times, but I won't lie. When I was doing this earlier today, I did the same thing and I forgot the ending bracket. So I have that at last symbol, ending bracket, space bar. Now let me put my ampersands back in. Quote, comma, space, quote, ampersand. Okay. And then I'm going to do it again. So there we go. So now I'm putting in the next piece. I want the first name. So I'm selecting that first name, and then I am going to close my bracket. And you can kind of see here that they're highlighted, right? So this is the blue and this is the red. Hopefully I haven't messed it up this time. I hit enter and there we go. All right, and the nice thing is the whole thing fills in at once. So let me kind of just go through that with you one more time here, because again, there's a lot of little bits and pieces here that I make mistakes on too. So we're entering the formula, we still start with the equal sign. And here's the change. So you have an open bracket with your at sign, and then you're going to select whatever column is relevant. So here we're going to do our last name, and don't be like me, forget the ending bracket. And then that will select the last name. You can see that that's there. I'm going to put a space, and then this is how we connect more than one thing here. So we're going to do the and, quote, quote, comma, space, quote, and. So basically this piece here tells us that, hey, we're going to add in a text symbol here of a comma and a space. And then again, we're going to finish that bracket, the at symbol. Now I want my first name, and then again, don't forget that ending bracket, and we hit enter, and that will fill in the entire column. So it does take a little bit getting used to the notation here, but it is pretty nice because everything has headings, so it's just about selecting the right heading. All right, let's do another one. So let's go over here. I'm going to insert a column before G. And I'm going to call this the hire year. And again, I'm just kind of following along with what your text is looking for here. So your text would like us to enter the year of hire in this case. So we're going to start with the equal sign. And I'm going to use the year formula. So it returns the year of a date of an integer in the range 1900 to 1999. So I'm going to select a formula. So I'm combining a formula here with my table. And now remember, we're in that table format, so this is where it's going to change a little bit. You use that bracket and that at symbol, and that will allow you to select the column that you're looking for. So I am looking for hire date. So you can't select hire year here because that's the column that I'm trying to create. It wouldn't help. So I need to use the hire date column. And again, don't forget that ending bracket. So you have a bracket set here, but then you need another one for this one. And that was a mistake that I made. I always forget my ending brackets. And then I'm going to just finish it with the parenthesis and hit enter. And that will put it all the way down. Now we do have an error here. Obviously, this is not reading correctly, right? Everything is saying 1905. So that is not right. That's a formatting issue in this case. So what I can do here is just try changing my formatting. And if you try general, it actually will work here because we're using the formula for year. So it's kind of doing something weird. And then what you could do is you can just select that and drag that formatting down. And it should fix all of them. So there we go. So now my year looks better here. All right, one more that we're going to do. So we would like to add another column before M. There's M. So I'm going to insert a column beforehand, and we're going to call this wages. So we like it to be the total wages. So I'm just writing wages and just hitting enter there. So I'd like to add up each employee's base salary, bonus, and commission to see their total wages in a year, for instance. So that would be a sum formula, right? If I'm adding things up, so I hit equal and I want to use the sum formula. So I'm just going to double click that. And again, it's a little bit different here. This one actually kind of works out nice because you can select these. We're just going to add these together. And if I move myself out of the way here, you can see that it actually does use that table formatting. So it's using the title of the table, and then it's using those brackets and @ symbols and selecting the appropriate categories. And this one does work. So we're just adding these together. This is a base formula here. So we can go ahead and click enter, and then you have your wages in that case as well. So it does take a little bit of playing around with the table to get used to it. But it does work, right? So it just getting a little bit used to that new formatting, but we can go ahead and we can play around with it. And one other thing I do want to note here, which actually is probably a little bit easier. I know for the first couple formulas, we were typing them in and kind of selecting the table column that we wanted to that way, using that bracket and @ symbol. But like we did with the sum formula here for wages, is you could also just select them. So for instance, if I go back to hire year here, and let me kind of start over for a second, I would type equal and year for my formula. And then instead of typing the bracket and the @ symbol myself to select the column that I'm looking at, if it's pretty straightforward, like I know I want to use the hire date, I can select that, and you can see it fills in that notation for me. And then again, I can end my parentheses and hit enter. So that's another way to do it, particularly if the formulas are pretty straightforward. If you're adding in text, like we did for the full name piece, that may be a little bit more challenging. You can still click, but you'll still have to add in those different features. But again, just like with formulas, you can do that just clicking the cells that you want. And a lot of times it does work out perfectly fine with the table as well, although you will notice that new notation for tables.